Hello folks, the Y Guy here again. Welcome to my home on this very beautiful spring day. The name of this video is called The Y Guy. Why is the word hell in the Bible? You know folks, if you're going to believe something, that a place that has been designed and created purposeful for where the vast majority, uncounted billions of people are going to spend an eternity, and you base that belief on the fact that it's in Scripture, don't you think common sense should tell you that you should investigate why it was put in there in the first place? That's only reasonable. So let me offer something. Why did the ancient Latin church push a hell narrative in the first place? You know, the smallest amount of research into ancient Latin culture explains everything so well. Because like most governments of that time, superstitions was a huge factor in determining how to run a society. It just was. The punishments done to people so often reflected a belief in evil spirits. It was a commonplace requiring, this belief was a commonplace requiring some kind of exorcism by means of physical torture. Okay? Apparently, evil spirits, I got to do this, evil spirits were uncomfortable with physical pain. Okay? Did you catch the sarcasm in that? Something spiritual, uncomfortable with something physical. Oh, and even movies reflect that. All these movies we watch. Yeah. You know, it was thought by any reasonable community of that day, and ours as well, okay, that people were generally good. So there has to be a reason why good people do bad things. Thus, evil spirits. Okay? The final nail in a governmental coffin, and this is why that our Constitution has separated church and state, is because the final nail in any governmental coffin is to incorporate a religion into the mix. And that, my dear friends, is exactly what ancient Rome did. They sure did. A vacuum was created when the rule of the Caesars and the emperors, along with the Roman Senate, ceased as a major influence. You notice I didn't say ceased, but just ceased as a major influence in running the government. Okay? Romulus Augustulus, I think that's how you say his last name. I don't know. Anyway, he was the last Caesar of Rome, and he died in 476 A.D. And get this, only 36 years after the publication of the Latin Vulgate. That's quite telling. It really is. The rule of religion was rising and pushing the Caesars out of power. Speaking of power, okay, the very thing that kept a Caesar in power was control. And that, my dear viewer, is the exact same power that the ancient Latin church had in mind from its very conception. It most certainly was control. Okay? By what means did the Caesars enforce control? Using them as an example. Okay? They used fear of punishment and or torture from the government. You know, down in their torture chambers, down in the bowels of their governmental buildings and stuff like that. Nothing's changed, really. Okay? So, at this time in history, the church and the government were melding as one. Okay? So, in like manner, the ancient Latin church used fear of punishment and torture from the governing church hierarchy, the governing church authority. The governing. Did you catch that? Okay? So, but it didn't stop there. Okay? It didn't stop there. The insidious frosting on the proverbial cake was how they used fear of being punished and tortured, not by necessarily them, well, including them, but by God too. Okay? But instead of a temporal prison cell or chamber down in the bowels of their church buildings, it would be done in a place called infernum in Latin, which means hell in English. And the cherry on top of that proverbial cake was how this punishment would last forever and ever and ever. Are you following me? Still with me? To further promote their fear agenda, the ancient Latin church published the first Bible of sorts, okay? and inserted the word infernum, which means hell in English, in both the Hebrew and Greek letters and manuscripts 111 times, where it never existed before. Folks, these were not errors in translation, but a purposeful manipulation of words like, and I wrote them down, Gehenna, Sheol, grave, pit, unseen, death, fire, and the perverted, yet wrongly accepted by many in Christendom, wrongly accepted the pagan Greek word Hades. All of those words I just mentioned were changed to infernum in Scripture. And the publishers of the Vulgate were not consistent in doing so. They only changed these words into hell when the context implied a punishment. Okay? Now, as an example, ancient Rome had garbage dumps. Okay? They most certainly did. Anyway, and they knew full well, ancient Rome knew full well that the word Gehenna was a garbage dump outside the south, I think it was the south gates of Jerusalem, okay? And it was a place where the garbage and bodies of criminals were discarded and burned. All right? And you notice the word criminal? That implies punishment, right? Which backs up what I just said earlier. All right? Yet they chose to change Scripture to read as infernum, hell, instead of using their well-known word, quisquale. It's spelled Quisquiliae, which means garbage. I could have used that. And or tuber, Tuber, which means dump. I could have used those two words together, and I'm not going to try to put them together. Not on this video. Okay, now most of our modern Bibles are translated or greatly influenced by the heavily perverted Latin Vulgate, and not one of our modern Bibles, modern versions, can agree on how many times the word hell, infernum, should be used. This fact is completely ignored by hell-believing Christians, yet it should bring up a huge red flag in the mind of anyone who considers themselves intelligent. It really should. See, it doesn't help matters that we don't have any original texts, but only numerous copies of copies. As per originals, the closest is the Greek Septuagint, which is the Greek Old Testament. And the word hell was never mentioned in it, yet the word Hades was. And since it represents a pagan Greek underworld of torment, okay, it helped cement the legitimacy of hell in the minds of the ignorant who don't know why the word Hades was inserted into the Septuagint Scripture. Okay? But that's a whole other issue for another time. So in closing this video, look folks, I can't make it any simpler than this. I really can't. To answer why the word hell is in most Bibles. There is good news, however. Okay, when speaking of Bibles, there's good news. Many Bibles don't have neither words hell nor Hades within their pages. And you know what? I can supply a list upon request. All you got to do is, if you leave a comment in the comment section here, make sure it's polite. That's all I ask, or else I'll delete it. And go ahead and ask me for that list, and I'll be happy to supply it. I'll copy and paste it and put it right in there. All right, and look me up on Facebook under a group called the Y Guy Group, and I have an avatar name of John Anthony Jones. You can find me there and check me out. The Y Guy Group is a private group, and John Anthony Jones, I meant to say Jonathan. Anyway, John Anthony Jones is an avatar fake name, and you can look me up and check me out first before even thinking about joining the Y Guy Group. I'm going to leave 5 links one to copy if you want to support this channel, support what I'm trying to do financially. I'd really appreciate it, as well as Patreon. There's 2 links that I'll leave in the Show Me More section of this video, and I'm going to leave 3 different links to Amazon for my 3 books that I have published, where I explain the history of all this stuff, folks. And I give you references of where I found it. See, on these videos, all I can do is put it out there, you know, but at least in my books I give you actual words and where they came from and dictionaries and concordances and all of that stuff. I don't make it dry, because sometimes I think it's better for folks just to investigate stuff for themselves. You know, I'm not going to hold anybody's hand. In a lot of cases, that was the case, but there's quite a few where I gave the right references. Anyway, I hope that made sense. Let me see what else. I have a website called thatwhyguy.com, and check it out. Anyway, thank you for viewing.